She smiled at the florist's delivery man, and three things happened in quick succession. The delivery man, mid-20s, cheerful, carrying a spray of white orchids for the reception desk, smiled back. The two assistants at the far end of the open-plan office went very still, without looking up from their screens. And from behind the closed glass wall of the corner office, where Sandro Reyes had been standing with his back to the room for the previous 4 minutes, something changed in the set of his shoulders. He turned around. He looked at the delivery man. Then he looked at Mara. Mara, who had been at this desk for 2 years and 3 months, and had learned to read the office the way you learn to read weather, by feel, before any visible sign, signed the delivery receipt, took the orchids, and did not look at the glass wall. What she didn't know, Sandro had been watching her smile for 6 weeks. Not this smile, all her smiles. The one she gave the coffee cart operator on the ground floor every morning. The one she gave to the elderly attorney who came in on Thursdays and always complimented her earrings. The one she was apparently giving florists' delivery men. He had been cataloging them. He had not told himself that's what he was doing. He was doing it anyway. By the time the delivery man was back in the elevator, Sandro's office door was open. He hadn't visibly moved to open it. It was simply open now, the way weather simply arrives. "Mara," he said, not loudly. He never said anything loudly. She picked up her notebook and went in. Her full name was Mara Soles Vega. She was 33 years old. She had been Sandro Reyes's executive secretary for 2 years and 3 months, and in that time she had learned 4 things about him with certainty. He arrived at 6:50 every morning. He took his coffee without anything in it. He never asked twice for something he'd already asked for once, and he was, underneath the measured exterior and the steel gray suits, and the voice that made senior partners step back almost imperceptibly when he used it, paying more attention to her than she had any professional framework for. She had no framework for it, because she had no precedent for it. Men like Sandro Reyes, 43, commanding, with the controlled authority of someone who had spent 20 years building something that could not be taken from him, did not pay that kind of attention to women like Mara. She knew the world well enough to know this. She had known it since secondary school in Malaga, since the university years in Madrid, since every professional environment she had moved through since. There was a category of woman the world lit up for, and there was the category she occupied, and those categories did not overlap. She had made peace with this a long time ago. She was good at her job. She liked her job. She liked the particular satisfaction of managing a complex schedule with precision, of being the person who knew which things were real emergencies and which things only sounded like them, of having Sandro look at the solution she'd arranged for some logistical disaster and not say good job, but simply move on, which was, she had come to understand, his version of good job. She had made peace with all of it. And then, he had started watching her. Not obtrusively, not in a way she could confront or name, just present. A quality of attention that she felt the way you feel a draft from a window left open in another room. Ambient and specific at once. She had spent 6 weeks trying to convince herself she was imagining it. The orchids, it turned out, were the end of that experiment. The Reyes Group occupied the top 3 floors of a glass building on Calle Serrano in Madrid, and it was the kind of company that did not have a simple description. Import coordination, the public filings said. Logistics advisory. Regional development. All of these things were true. None of them were the whole truth. What Mara had understood within her first month, the clients who came in through the private elevator rather than the lobby entrance, the calls that Sandro took standing at the window with the door closed, the security team that operated on a rotation she'd memorized before anyone asked her to. These were the actual shape of the business. She had never been told this. She had simply paid attention. She had also never been asked to do anything that required her to not pay attention to her conscience. In 2 years and 3 months, every task assigned to her had been completable with her ethics intact. She had checked more than once whether this was luck or design. She had concluded it was design. This was the 4th thing she knew about Sandro Reyes, the most important one, the one that had made her stay when she could have left. Whatever else he was, he ran something that held a specific line. She didn't know exactly where the line was. She knew it was there. Her mother was in Malaga, Dolores Soles, 64, recently retired from the municipal library where she had worked for 31 years and now spent her days with her garden and her novels and her weekly phone call with Mara. Her mother asked on every call whether Mara was eating enough and sleeping enough and whether the job was making her happy. Mara always said yes to eating, probably to sleeping, and gave an honest answer to happy, I think so. It's hard to tell. Her mother had said, twice, you sound different when you talk about him. Mara had said, I sound efficient. That's what I'm paid to be. Her mother had said both times, that's not what I mean. She went into the office. She sat in the chair across from his desk, her chair. The one that had been angled 2 degrees toward the window since the 3rd week, which she had not adjusted, and he had not adjusted, and neither of them had mentioned. She opened her notebook. The Aldecoa call is at 4, she said. The Vienna connection you asked about is booked for Thursday. The restructure document needs your signature before noon. I've flagged the 3 clauses you wanted reviewed. He was looking at her. She kept her eyes on the notebook. The Carmona dinner on Friday, she continued, has moved from 8 to 8:30 at the restaurant's request. I've confirmed the private room. The florist, he said. She stopped. You smiled at him, Sandro said, not accusatory, almost curious, the way he said most things, but underneath the curiosity was something else, something she didn't have a clean name for, something compressed. He was delivering orchids, she said. It would have been strange not to. You have a specific smile, he said. You use it when you want someone to feel comfortable. You used it on him. She looked up at him. With respect, she said, I use it on everyone. It's called being professional. No, he said. You have a professional smile. That's different. You used the other one. She stared at him. The other one. Yes, you are telling me, she said, carefully, that you have categorized my smiles. Something moved across his face. The almost acknowledgement of someone who has been caught being more specific than he'd planned. I'm telling you, I noticed the difference. Why? She said. Not with heat. With genuine, flat bewilderment. He was quiet for a moment. The kind of quiet that in 2 years she had learned to let sit, because he always came out the other side of it with something true. I don't want you to smile at other men, he said. She looked at him for a long moment. That is, she said, a very complicated thing to say to your secretary. I know, he said. And you've said it anyway. Yes, she sat with that. Outside the glass wall, the office was going about its business. Keyboards, a low phone conversation, the distant elevator. In here there was just him, and the desk between them, and a sentence he had apparently been working up to for an indeterminate period of time. The Aldecoa call is at 4, she said. He looked at her steadily. I know. And the restructure document needs your signature before noon. Mara. I am going to go back to my desk, she said, and I am going to pretend this conversation happened in a different order, starting from the Aldecoa call, and we are going to get through the rest of this workday professionally." She stood up. She picked up her notebook. "And then?" he said. She stopped at the door. She didn't turn around. "And then I'm going to think about it," she said. "That's all I can tell you right now." She went back to her desk. She did not smile at anyone for the rest of the afternoon, not because he'd asked her not to, because she had too much to think about. The planted detail had been there since the first month. A number in Sandro's private contacts list, flagged do not route, that she'd glimpsed once while updating his directory and never seen again. A name, R. Duarte, no company. No title, no secondary contact. Just a mobile number with a Sao Paulo prefix. She had noted it. She had filed it in the part of her mind reserved for things that were probably nothing, and might be something, and were not her business either way. She had not thought about it again until the Thursday of the week after the Orchid conversation, when she was in the server room adjacent to the filing archive, updating the quarterly contact records, and heard, through the wall shared with the secondary conference room, Sandro's voice. He was not on a call she had scheduled. She was not eavesdropping. She was doing her job. The wall was not thick. The same arrangement as before, Sandro said. Duarte understands the terms. A pause. "No," he said. "That timeline doesn't work. Move it to the third week." Another pause. "Because I said so." A final pause. "She doesn't need to know about this," he said. "Keep it clean." She heard him end the call. She heard his footsteps cross the conference room. She stood in the server room with a contact directory in her hands and a very specific feeling in her chest. Not panic, not anger, but the controlled adrenaline of someone who has just received a data point that doesn't fit the model and needs to decide what to do with it. She doesn't need to know about this. She didn't know who she was. She didn't know what this was. She filed it. She went back to work. But for the first time in 2 years and 3 months, she went home that evening and sat in her apartment in Lavapis with a glass of water and thought about what she didn't know. 3 days later, on a Sunday, she found out. She had not planned to be at the office on a Sunday. She had come in at 9 a.m. to retrieve a document she'd left in her desk drawer, a letter from the municipal registry in Laga regarding her mother's pension paperwork, which she'd been meaning to post for a week. She had her own building access. She let herself in through the side entrance. She took the elevator to the 23rd floor. The office was empty. Or she thought it was. She found the letter, sealed it, and was heading back toward the elevator when she heard voices from the direction of Sandro's office. Not his office door, which was closed, but the secondary exit that connected to the private meeting corridor. 2 voices. Sandro, and someone she didn't recognize, a man, older by the sound of him. Speaking quietly, she should have continued to the elevator. She took 3 steps in the wrong direction, because she had been thinking about, she doesn't need to know about this for 72 hours, and she was, whatever her other qualities, constitutionally incapable of leaving a puzzle she'd started assembling. What she heard, through the gap of the partially open secondary door, the Sao Paulo arrangement is finalized. Duarte's people will handle the transfer. The account in Mara's name is, she stopped breathing. Standard practice, the older voice said. Untraceable, a gift structure. She won't see it unless, she won't see it, Sandro said. I've already made sure. She stood very still in the empty office. An account in Mara's name. She walked back to the elevator, pressed the button, stood in it on the way down with her letter to the municipal registry and her heart doing something controlled and deliberate, the way it had learned to operate when the thing happening was too large to process, while also remaining upright. She posted the letter on the way home. She bought coffee from a Sunday kiosk. She sat on a bench in the Retiro for 40 minutes and looked at the lake. Then she called her mother. Not because she was going to tell her, just to hear her voice. Her mother talked about the garden. The tomatoes were coming in. The roses were not cooperating. The neighbor's cat had returned after a 2-week absence. And Mara listened, and at the end her mother said, "You're quiet today." "I'm thinking," Mara said. "About the job?" "About a lot of things." Her mother paused. "You know," she said, "your father used to go very quiet when he'd figured something out but hadn't decided what to do with it yet. You have the same silence." Mara looked at the lake. "Get some sleep, Kiselnyom," her mother said, and then caught herself and laughed, because that was not a word in her vocabulary. It was Mara's word, borrowed from a colleague years ago, and her mother had been accidentally using it for a decade. Whatever the word is in Spanish. "Cario," Mara said. Or hija. "Get some sleep, hija," her mother said. "Whatever it is, it'll be clearer in the morning." She was at her desk at 6:50 on Monday. Sandro arrived at 6:50, the way he always arrived, and stopped when he saw her. Not with surprise, he stopped the way he stopped when something had shifted and he was calibrating. "You were in on Sunday," he said. "I left a letter," she said. "I came to get it." He sat down at his desk. He looked at the closed glass wall between them. She watched him from the outer office. He was very still. The specific stillness of someone who knows that a thing has reached the point where it has to be named. At 7:15, his door opened. "Come in," he said. She came in. She sat in her chair. She did not open her notebook. "How much did you hear?" he said. "Enough," she said. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "You know about the account." "I heard my name," she said. "I heard Sao Paulo. I heard she won't see it." She looked at him. "I would like you to explain it to me." He was quiet for a long moment. Outside, Madrid was coming alive in its Monday way. Trams, car horns, the distant sound of the building's vac beginning its day. In here there was just the two of them, and a conversation she had been waiting for without knowing she was waiting for it. "Your mother's pension," he said. She stared at him. "The municipal scheme," he said. "The one she retired from." The payout structure was changed 2 years ago. The cohort she's in takes a 12% reduction on the longevity benefit starting at 65. I had someone look at it. He paused. "The account is structured as an annuity supplement. It's in your name, not hers, so it doesn't affect her benefit entitlement. She will never know it exists unless you tell her. You'll receive a quarterly statement. The first one arrives in November." She looked at him. "I didn't ask you to do this," she said. "No," he said. "I didn't tell you about the pension reduction." "No." He held her gaze. "You mentioned your mother in March. You said she'd retired. I had someone look at the scheme." He paused again. "It took 45 minutes. I should have told you. Why didn't you?" "Because," he said. And for the first time in 2 years and 3 months, she heard something underneath the controlled exterior that was not controlled at all. "I didn't want you to feel like it was payment for something. It's not." His voice was even. His hands were still. But his eyes, she realized, were doing the thing they did when something mattered. A focusing. A specificity, the look of someone arriving somewhere they've been walking toward for a long time. "You've been here 2 years. You run this office. You have never asked me for anything. You've never even implied there was something you needed." "I wanted." He stopped. "What?" she said. "I wanted to give you something without it being a transaction," he said. "Without you having to perform gratitude for it." without it changing how you sit in that chair. He looked at the chair. I did it wrong. I understand that now. The morning light was coming through the east windows, the way it always did, landing on the left side of his desk and the left side of his face, and she thought, I have been sitting 3 feet from this man for 2 years and 3 months, and I did not know he had been thinking about my mother's pension. You've been thinking about this since March, he said. That's 7 months. Yes, and the florist conversation was 3 weeks ago. Yes, she looked at him. You've been paying attention to me for a very long time, she said. Yes, he said, very simply, the way he said the things that cost him something. Why didn't you say anything? He was quiet for a moment, a long one, the kind she had learned to let sit. Because I didn't know what I would do, he said, if you said no. She did not say no. She also did not say yes, not immediately, not in the way of someone who has been waiting and finally gets to say it. She said, I need to think about this. And he said, I know. And she said, I need to know exactly what you are before I decide what I'm saying yes to. And he said, with the specific honesty of someone who has been asked a fair question and understands he owes it a fair answer, I'll tell you whatever you want to know. What followed was a conversation that lasted 1 hour and 40 minutes and covered things she had suspected, things she had not suspected, and 3 things she would not have guessed in any configuration. She asked, and he answered, without deflection, without softening. The line she had sensed in 2 years of working for him was real, and he told her exactly where it was and why, and she listened the way she listened, fully, without interruption, building the shape of it in her mind as it went. At the end she said, and the people on the other side of the line. What happens to them? He said, they find themselves without the things that made them dangerous. Quietly, completely, he paused. I don't do violence for its own sake. But you do it when it's necessary. I have, he said. Less than you might think. More than I would prefer. She looked at him. At the desk between them. At the chair she'd been sitting in for 2 years and 3 months. At the morning light still on the left side of his face. The account, she said. Yes, you can't structure something like that without a second conversation, she said. You'll need documentation. He looked at her steadily. I'll prepare the paperwork, she said. I'm going to want to review the annuity terms myself. I need to understand the quarterly statement format before November. She paused. And I want to tell my mother, not the source, just that the shortfall has been addressed. She worries. He nodded. And one more thing, she said. Yes, the florist's delivery man, she said. His name was Tom's. He has been delivering to this building every Tuesday and Thursday for 8 months. He is 24 years old and he recently became engaged, and I know this because he showed me the ring on Thursday in the lobby. She looked at Sandro directly. I was congratulating him. He was quiet for a moment. I see, he said. Yes, she said. You do now. Something moved across his face, the release of something held for too long, arriving as something that was not quite relief and not quite embarrassment and was, she realized. The specific undone look of a man who has just discovered the wall he built was a door. Don't ever smile at another man, he said, very quietly, testing the weight of it now that the context had changed. I'll smile at whoever I like, she said, just as quietly. But I'll tell you when it means something. He held her gaze for a long moment. Fair, he said. What happened to the man who had been the reason for the account's necessity? A former business associate of Sandro's named Gregorio Funes, who had, 18 months prior, spent 3 weeks circulating a specific description of Mara through a professional network he thought was private. A description that was the kind, casual cruelty that men like him performed without remembering they'd done it. Is not a story Mara ever heard in full. She knew only that Funes no longer appeared on any of Sandro's correspondence, that a business project he'd been centrally positioned to profit from had been restructured in a way that left him outside it entirely, that his access to the professional networks he relied on had quietly evaporated over a period of about 4 months, and that when she'd once asked Sandro, obliquely, the Funes situation, has it resolved? He had said, completely, in the specific tone of voice that meant the subject was closed. She did not push. She had made her own decision about his particular kind of justice, institutional, complete, and cold enough to last, and she had decided she could live with it, not because she approved of everything it required, but because she had looked at what it protected and decided it was worth protecting. In November, the quarterly statement arrived, clean, unremarkable, filed under a property management company whose name gave nothing away. She reviewed the annuity terms and found them exactly as described. She amended 2 administrative details, filed the corrected documentation, and sent Sandro a single line, reviewed and confirmed. Statement format is acceptable. He replied. Good. This was, she had come to understand, his version of most things. She called her mother that evening and told her that the pension shortfall had been addressed. She did not explain the source. She said it was through a work arrangement, which was true in the broadest sense. Her mother was quiet for a moment. You don't have to tell me how, her mother said. No, Mara agreed. But you're all right, her mother said. You sound all right. I'm better than all right, Mara said. She was standing at her apartment window in Lavapis with the evening coming in, the lights of the city, the distant sound of the market shutting down for the night, the smell of something cooking from the floor below. I think I've figured something out. The thing you were thinking about in September? Yes, her mother was quiet for a moment. Then, is it the man from the job? Mara closed her eyes briefly. Ma'am, you told me twice it wasn't, her mother said, serene. You never tell me something isn't happening unless it is. You learned that from your father, too. Mara laughed, a real one. Sudden, the kind that comes out before you decide to let it. I'll call you on Sunday, she said. Call me before Sunday, her mother said. I want to hear how it goes. It went like this. The following Tuesday, the florist's delivery man, Tom's 24, recently engaged, came to the reception desk with white orchids, and Mara signed for them and said, "Congratulations again on the engagement," and smiled at him. The specific smile. The one she used when she wanted someone to feel comfortable. She was aware, as she did it, of the corner office. She did not look at the glass wall. She finished the conversation with Tom's, set the orchids on the desk, picked up her notebook, and walked to Sandro's office and opened the door without knocking, because in 2 years and 3 months she had never knocked, and she was not starting now. He looked up from his desk. The Aldecoa follow-up is filed, she said. The Vienna call needs to move to Friday. The contact is in transit Thursday. And I just smiled at the florist's delivery man. He looked at her. A long moment. That focusing. His name is Tom's, she said. He got engaged. I congratulated him. It meant nothing. She paused. I thought you should know. He sat back very slightly. I thought you should know, she said again, because I said I would tell you when it means something, and this didn't. She let that land. So you know what the difference feels like now. He was quiet for a moment. And when it means something? He said. When it means something, she said. I'll tell you that too. He looked at her. Really looked. The way he had apparently been looking for 6 weeks. Except this time he wasn't doing it through a glass wall, and she wasn't pretending not to notice. "Dinner," he said. Not a question. Not exactly a request. A statement in the declarative register of someone who has learned that asking can be mistaken for uncertainty. "Friday. The Vienna call is Friday," she said. "After the Vienna call," he said. She looked at him. "The Vienna call is at 3, she said. "Yes," he said. "Dinner is not at 3. Something was happening in her chest, the specific warmth of a thing that has been approaching for long enough that when it arrives it feels both surprising and inevitable, like a season changing. She had felt it before at a distance. She was feeling it now close up, and close up it was larger than she'd estimated. "I'll confirm," she said, which was not yes, but was also not no, and they both knew the difference. She went back to her desk. She set down her notebook. She looked at the orchids on the reception desk, white and unreasonable and present. She confirmed at 4:15 by walking to his office door and saying, "Friday. Wherever you choose." And then she went back to her desk before he could say anything. Because some things are better landed and left alone. She called her mother on Wednesday instead of Sunday. Her mother, who had been gardening when the phone rang, said one moment and put the phone down and came back with the sound of someone who had been moving around in the sun all morning and was pleasantly tired. "Tell me," her mother said. So Mara told her. Not the full version, not the business version, not the account or the pension or the 4 months of institutional demolition of Gregorio Funes, but the rest of it. The orchids, the office, the 7 months and the florist's delivery man, and I don't know what I would do if you said no. The Friday dinner that was not yet Friday. Her mother listened without interrupting, which was rare. At the end she said, "You've known for a while, haven't you?" "Yes," Mara said. "How long?" Mara thought about it. "Since the 3rd week," she said. "The chair, what chair?" "He angled my chair 2 degrees toward the window," she said, "so I had more light. He didn't say anything about it. He just did it." Her mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, very softly, "Oh." "Yes," Mara said. "That's the kind of man," her mother said, and didn't finish the sentence, because she didn't need to. Friday dinner was at a restaurant in the Salamanca district. Private room. A table for 2. No menus because he had ordered in advance, which should have been presumptuous and somehow wasn't. He was there before her. He stood when she came in. He looked at her the way he had been looking at her for 6 weeks through a glass wall, except now there was no wall, and no desk, and no notebook, and nothing between them except a table and a candle and the particular quality of his attention that she had decided, after 2 years and 3 months, she was done pretending not to feel. She sat across from him. He sat. The food arrived. They ate. And they talked. And the conversation had none of the careful formality of an office, and all the ease of 2 people who have been paying attention to each other for long enough that the beginning feels like continuation. At some point, after the 2nd course, before the 3rd, she said, "Why didn't you adjust the chair back?" He looked at her. "What?" "The 3rd week," she said. "The chair, you angled it 2 degrees. You could have just asked me if the light was bothering me." He considered this. "The light was bothering you," he said. "I fixed it." "You could have asked," she said. "If I asked," he said, "you would have said you were fine." He paused. "You say you're fine when you're not fine. You've been doing it since the 1st week." She looked at him. "You noticed that in the 1st week." "Yes," he said. She sat with this. "You noticed that," she said, "and you didn't say anything until the orchids." "No," he said. "Why not?" He was quiet for a moment. Outside the private room, the restaurant was a low murmur, entirely elsewhere. In here there was just this, Because, he said, I needed to be sure I wasn't imagining it. You were cataloging my smiles, she said. Yes, that is, she said, an extremely specific thing to do. I know, he said. And you needed 6 weeks to be sure. 4, he said. The last 2 were confirmation. She looked at him across the table. At the man who had angled her chair in the 3rd week and spent 7 months arranging an annuity supplement and taken 4 months to dismantle. The professional life of a man who had spoken about her carelessly at a dinner she'd never attended and had apparently been cataloging her. Smiles since sometime in September, and had said, with total composure, I didn't know what I would do if you said no. The most vulnerable thing she had ever heard him say, delivered in the same register he used for logistics updates. Don't ever smile at another man, she said. She said it the way you say something back to someone when you want them to hear how it sounds. He heard how it sounded. He looked at her. That was, he said, a poor choice of words. Yes, she said. What I meant, he said, and stopped. Tell me what you meant, she said. He looked at the table for a moment, a rare thing, the looking away, and then back at her. I meant, he said, that you have a smile that I have not been able to stop thinking about for 6 weeks, and I did not want other men to have it, and I said it poorly, and I know that. She held his gaze. I'll smile at whoever I like, she said. Again, the same words as before, but different now. Lighter, something underneath them that hadn't been there in the office. I know, he said. This time, without the tension. Just the fact. But I'm here, she said, on a Friday, in a private room. And I'm not smiling at anyone else right now. He looked at her for a long moment, the specific look, the one she had learned to read from across a glass wall over 2 years and 3 months, except up close it was warmer than glass allowed for, warmer than she'd accounted for. The look of someone who has been precise and careful and controlled for a very long time and has found the one thing he does not want to be controlled about. No, he said. You're not. 3 months later, Mara sat at her desk on the 23rd floor of the building on Calle Serrano on a Tuesday morning, with coffee that was exactly the right temperature, and a schedule that ran, as it always ran, with the precision of something she had built to run that way. Toms from the florist came with white orchids, and she signed the receipt, and they had a brief, pleasant conversation about the wedding venue his fiancée had selected, and she smiled at him. The specific one, the real one. And then she took the orchids to the reception desk and went back to her own desk. From the corner office, through the glass wall, Sandro was on a call. He was standing at the window with his back to the room, which meant the call was the kind he stood for. She watched his reflection in the glass, the set of his shoulders, the particular stillness of his listening. After a moment, he shifted. Not enough to turn around, just enough that she could see, in the window's reflection, that he was aware of her. She looked down at her schedule. She was aware of him too. This was not new. This had been true for 2 years and 3 months, and it was still true, and it was not going to stop being true. And she had decided, on a Friday in the Salamanca district, with a candle between them and 3 months still ahead of her, that she was not going to spend any more time pretending it was something else. The call ended. She heard his footsteps cross the office. She did not look up. His door opened. Mara, he said. She picked up her notebook. She went in. She sat in her chair, angled 2 degrees toward the window, adjusted in the 3rd week, unchanged for 2 years and 3 months. She opened the notebook to the day's schedule. She looked up at him. He was looking at her. The specific look. Good morning, she said. He sat down. Good morning, he said, and they went to work. The way they always went to work. except that everything was different now, and they both knew it, and neither of them felt the need to say so, because some things are better lived in than named. Outside the glass, Madrid continued its Tuesday. The city did not care whether a woman in a 23rd floor office had finally stopped pretending, whether a man who catalogued smiles had said the wrong thing and then the right thing, and then asked for Friday dinner. The trams ran. The sun came through the east windows. The orchids on the reception desk opened 1 more degree than they had yesterday. She noticed. She filed it. She kept working. She was smiling. Not the professional one. Not the comfort one. The third one. The one she hadn't named yet because it was new, and she kept it for herself, turned down toward the notebook, small and specific and entirely hers. Tell me in the comments, was it the chair that got you, or was it the pension? Because for a lot of people, those two things land completely differently, and I want to know which one you felt first. Drop it below. I read every single one. If this is the kind of story you're here for, where the love language is attention, paid quietly for months before anyone admits it, follow along. New story every day. And one more thing. Sandro has a standing Thursday call with a contact in Lisbon he's never explained to anyone. Mara has never asked. She thinks she knows what it is. She might be right. She might be about to find out she's missing something. Let me know in the comments if you want that story. I'll be watching to see how many of you do.